Okay, who's next? Yeah, please.
Mr. Trump, I have a question.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down.
No.
Sit down.
No,
sit down.
An immigrant.
Go ahead.
I have the right to ask the question.
No, you don't. You haven't been called.
I have the right to ask the question.
Go back to Univision.
No, this is the question.
Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million.
Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million people.
Well, that was last night's sparring match between Donald Trump and Univision's Jorge Ramos. Security escorted the veteran Hispanic news anchor out of the room after he had been repeatedly questioning the candidate over his immigration proposals. Mr. Trump's deportation comments have sparked national attention. So was this a grandstanding moment for Univision or for Trump or for journalism? Joining us now, Guy Benson, Fox News contributor, and Dietl is back with us. Guy, what did you make of last night's exchange?
Yeah, well, Ramos wasn't so much questioning Trump as he was heckling Trump. And I've been very critical of Donald Trump on a number of fronts, and I stand by all of that. But in this case, I think Trump was right to say, well, hang on. You can't just stand up and start shouting. There are people raising their hands. I'm calling on people. It's not your turn. And ultimately, when Ramos was asked to leave by security, they brought him back. Trump called on him, and they had a lengthy exchange about immigration.
What did you think?
Trump just excites me. I agree with Guy. I mean, you can't have a heckler like that. And Donald...
Was he heckling or just trying to get questions
No, he was
answered?
heckling as far as I'm concerned. You wait, you have some sort of, you're asking a question. You're not giving what you're feeling in your heart. We also know Donald is suing Univision, I think, right, for a lot of money.
He said last night he was, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, the way Donald is, I think Donald...
By the way, you're friends with him, right?
I'm friends with 30 years, and I get excited when Donald talks because he's so different, but he's saying what a lot of people are feeling. And even a thing like this, we had the other fellow from the Democrats there when they escorted him off the stage, the hecklers. They're not going to escort Donald off the stage. Yeah. And let's face it, Donald has an opinion about the immigration. I have an opinion about immigration. When we talk about having 50 million people in the United States and we don't know where, who, what, I think we have to buckle down. So I agree with Donald.
Guy, Bo just raised the important point that there is grassroots frustration with the status quo, that Donald Trump is basically about, detonating, getting rid of the status quo because it's so smothering. It does not allow any change in Washington, D.C. So I think that's how people are connecting. But what's happening right now is voters are really not engaged in what's going on with the election right now. And once I think they'd rather connect to the policies and electability of a candidate, not a candidate's ego and his bravado. I think there's going to be a tipping point possibly with Donald Trump. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, that's what all the other candidates are certainly hoping. And it's something that I personally am hoping because Donald Trump is not my candidate. I'm an undecided voter, but I am decided on him because I don't think he's a conservative. I don't think he has the temperament to be president. But yeah, right now he is sort of the poster child for the millions of Americans who just cannot stand the status quo, cannot stand the ruling class, cannot stand the political class. And he gets up there and he doesn't play by these sort of phony baloney rules, which I totally get why people like that. They're sort of, I've used this phrase before, they're sort of like flipping the bird to Washington, D.C. by supporting him. The question is, though, can he actually be president? Does he have what it takes to be commander-in-chief of the most powerful country in the world? That's something voters will have to decide many months from now.
Guy, we have Barack Obama as our president. Was he capable to be the president of the United States? Look what he's done. Nothing in 7 years.
Yeah,
My point with Donald, Guy, is he's saying refreshing things. If they did a polling, which they did a polling across the country, the number 2 issue with every American is the immigration problem. So he's hitting on
hang on. I hear what you're saying. And Guy, sorry, let me just jump in here for a second.
Sure.
There is something, though, about Donald Trump where he feels like he needs to fight every battle, and it turns. It gets very negative in a very unsavory way, and sometimes in a disturbing way, how he gets so quick to attack. And is it necessary? Is he demeaning himself? Because I get the sense is he's frustrated. He does maybe have some policy ideas, but when he's, being questioned repeatedly by Univision's anchor there, he turns. And that's the temperament issue that I think may lead to the tipping point with Donald Trump. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, look, here's the thing. I think using a heavier hand with Ramos, who was out of turn, and he's an activist anyway. I'm more willing to defend that.
Well, he is a journalist. He's not an activist or an advocate.
No, but on the
activist.
immigration issue, he's definitely an activist. He's described himself that way.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I don't find it refreshing, for example, when Donald Trump gets upset about a completely legitimate question asked to him at the debate by Megyn Kelly and relentlessly trolls her week after week and retweets things like calling her a bimbo. That's not refreshing. American voters are not going to find that refreshing. American women are not going to find that refreshing.
I totally agree. And I talked to Donald's guy there, Mike, and I agree with you. I mean, we have our Megyn, and I think Megyn should be left alone, and he should be a man and say, I'm sorry, and move on.
Okay.
So that's it.
Got to leave it there. Boy, you guys really told Donald what to do, how to fix his campaign. We'll see what happens.
I still like him, bud.
You still like him? Okay.
I like the guy.